What's up, gang? Welcome to The Assist. I am your host, Dylan. First off, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in and rocking with me. I know there's a multitude of podcasts that you could be watching right now that follow all things Pels and Zydeco, but thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This podcast is brought to you by none other than the No Network, where we cover all the sports that exist within Louisiana, from rugby to basketball, whatever it is, we cover here at the No, from LSU to Tulane to the Pelicans, to the Saints, to the Zydeco, everything you have. Cannot forget about the Wave over there, Tulane. I'll get in trouble if I don't mention them. We cover it all here at the No, so if you're looking for a one-stop shop to cover or to find resources about all of your favorite teams that exist in Louisiana, congratulations. You're now rocking with the best. We are so happy that you're here. I want to give you a disclaimer. First off, I want to say I'm sorry. I know if you've been rocking with me for a while, you knew about the home court, and it was a super dope thing, but I had to step away to focus on my family, focus on my life, focus on the things that I got going on around me. But I promise you this, with the assist, I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be here dropping content for you as much as I possibly can, because you deserve the best. You deserve the best. The Pelicans are my lifelong team. Obviously, you know, I was a Bulls fan in the 90s because we didn't have the Pels. But as long as the Pelicans were the Hornets and they were rocking in New Orleans, when Dan Dickau was shooting jumpers, I was with the team rocking with them. When Courtney Alexander, we thought he was our version of Michael Jordan. Okay, I may be stretching the truth, but let me rock out, okay? But I'm just saying all that to let you know I've been here and I'm going to be here and I'm going to do my best to be here to give you all of the information that's going on with our favorite teams as much as I can, and give you thoughts as well as give you some dope interviews. And we've got two cool guests today. Two cool guests. First off, we got Stephen Gillaspie from No Ceilings. He's going to help us cover all things draft. Who are the prospects the Pels should be looking at? Who shouldn't they be looking at? He's also going to throw in a couple of thoughts of his own on the Pels from an overall standpoint. How can the Pelicans be an overall better team? And then, as I told you guys before, I'm not just a basketball fan. I am a hockey fan as well. And most of you might not know this, but Louisiana actually has a hockey team named the Baton Rouge Zydeco. They play in the Federal Prospect Hockey League, the EP.1. It's a very, very fun league. And if you have not been to a Zydeco game yet, you are missing out. The Zydeco just finished their first season in Baton Rouge where they broke records for attendance. Shout out to my city for putting on and supporting this as it takes hold of our city. I really, really believe that it's going to be a great thing. I really believe the Kingfish could have really thrived here if the community and the political situations rallied around them. But let's do our best to make sure the Zydeco stick around. So, you ready to get to this show? Let's do it. The New Orleans Pelicans are preparing to jump into the draft Wednesday night with one pick, the 21st pick overall. There's been a couple of things that people have concluded that the Pels could do with this pick. I've seen some great thoughts passed around with the Pels potentially trading down and getting 2 second-round picks, because this draft has historically been seen as a weak draft. And I am of the mindset that I'd like to see him take the 21st pick, especially if Khalil Ware is there. Sorry if I messed up your name, bro. I'm a big fan of your game, and I promise you I'm going to remember your name if your game matches up. I really, really, really want to see him in a Pelicans uniform. I've heard a lot about Massey. I've heard a lot about a couple of other prospects, but enough of me talking about it. We brought in the big guns for this because, as I said before, here at The Assist, we're going to do everything we can to give you our best and the best. And so what I did is I reached out to my friends at No Ceilings. This podcast, this brand, they do a literally year-round coverage of the NBA draft. They start prospecting players literally as soon as September, and then they just run. Actually, I'm joking, as soon as August, and they just run all the way, and they take one break in July and get right back into it. So I reached out to my friends at No Ceilings, and my guy Steven hit me back, and he just let me know, listen, I would love to come and talk Pels. I would love to come and let you guys know what I think about your team. So if you would do me a favor and in the chat, give a clap, make some noise for none other than my brother, Stephen Gillaspie.
Dylan, man, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I've really wanted to get on the show because anytime anyone wants to reach out and do work, I always try to make an asserted effort to be there. So I appreciate you being so generous with your time as well, and I'm excited to talk talk to you today, man, about the Pels and where they could be going in the draft.
I love it, brother. Before I go any further, I want to make sure I said your last name right because we're gonna be honest. It's Gillaspie, right? I should have did that before the show started.
It's
He's
Gillaspie, but it's
Gillaspie.
Gillaspie. Yeah, it's all
Jeez
good, man.
Louise.
Growing up, being in sports teams, people just like kind of gave up trying to learn how to pronounce it. So I got like G Man, G Money, G Dog,
I
like
love it.
G anything. So, but yeah, man, it's not a problem at all. It happens to me all the time. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
I love it. I love it. You know, we value authenticity here, so we're gonna keep that in the pod. So
It's good, man.
the realm you operate in, Stephen, is the draft realm. You're a high caliber. The whole No Ceilings brand is high caliber when it comes to analyzing prospects and talent that's coming down the pipeline. When you look at where the Pels sit at number 21 in the draft, the only current draft pick that they hold in this draft, is there a player in your mind right now that you're like, man, he would be the perfect get for the Pels if he's there on the board?
Ooh, at 21, it gets rough, man, especially for the Pels, because I feel like y'all got the wings on lock. I don't know how much point Zion y'all want to run, which could kind of make it interesting. There's a few teams, and you and I were talking before we hit record about some of the players that have actually gone and worked out with the Pelicans. Uh, the player that I'm highest on out of this group of names is Jalen Tyson. I love Jalen Tyson, man, out of California. Used to play at Texas Tech, formerly of Texas as well. And I think that he just kind of fits like that wing, kind of like the wing stop now, the NBA, right? Is the New
Yeah.
Orleans Pelicans. And about 6'7", shot about 36% from the 3-point line this year, if memory serves me correctly. Just a really big, good dribble pass shoot athlete. And I think that offensively, he makes a lot of sense with the Pelicans. Dylan, one thing that people have kind of like picked on him a little bit for this season, and I understand why, has been his defense. And if you were just to watch the film at California this year of Jalen Tyson, I would understand that. I would just I would just like to ask people that before they dive in and dig in on his defense, that they go back and watch Texas Tech stuff, because I feel like in a smaller scaled down role when he wasn't just the engine of the offense, he was actually really good defender at Texas Tech. And there's two things that they love to recruit there, man. It's defensive minded players and athletes. So I figured that, the Pelicans would love to add some defensive wing stoppers just to kind of give more of what they already got. And then someone who also is a competent 3-point shooter as well. And he's kind of grown into a playmaker a little bit this year at California. So that added role, that kind of scaled up role that he had for California this year, I think is going to serve him well, because role players in the NBA all used to be stars at one point. So I think it was actually very
Right.
valuable for Jalen's development this year to step into that star role, because he now knows what's expected from himself to the star players, because he experienced it this year at California.
Right. Right. And I mean, let's just be honest, 19-6-3.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll translate into most leagues. Obviously, as you said, defense is a big thing, and it's hard to put anybody next to Zion and Zion and Trey Murphy, who are seen as kind of the cornerstones. Obviously, Brandon Ingram, that there's a little situation there right now, but the cornerstones of the future iteration of the Pelicans. It's hard to put someone who's also offensively minded around those individuals and say, let's run. And so I hear you with the 19-6-3, and I'm just like, bring that on this team. But as you said he had a better run at Texas Tech with his defensive acumen. Do you think that's something that he can rehash down the line? Do you think he has the ability, like you said, to transition from being that primary scorer to being a set shooter, corner guy, but also a mid to high level defensive player? Is he able to reharness that ability, or is that kind of like, you might get a little bit of that back, but you're getting a bucket getter, for lack of better verbiage?
Well, I think it's important to never really kind of close off the door on any aspect of a player like Jalen, because if limit what he could do on the offensive end as well. So I think that you don't really want to close the door, But I think that what he could offer a team is that someone who can, um, kind of be like that 3-and-D type player. I think that he can scale it down. He has been crushing it at workouts recently too. Like all the intel that we've been getting at No Ceilings is that Jalen has just been interviewing well, doing well. The only knock that he's really getting that I find kind of silly is that does he want to scale down his role? I think that's silly because I think that he would. I don't know if Jalen's going into this draft thinking he's a superstar based off of where current projections are for him. And I think that if you're worried that he might want to do too much based off of like his draft range right now, you're kind of really picking nits because we've seen him do so well in a in an ancillary role. And the thing that kind of stood out about his California film is that if he got in foul trouble, Dylan, he would like California just couldn't do anything. So I think that kind of played into his defensive film this year. I think that he will and that he can scale down and be
Yeah.
a part of like the future of the Pelicans if he was to go there.
Yeah, I like you got me excited, man. That's why you're so good at your job. Because I'm over here thinking, get Tyson on my team now. I already want a jersey right now with Tyson on the back of it because Jalen Tyson is the future. So if you had to give an NBA comp to Jalen Tyson, just
Ooh,
off the top of your head, putting you on the
yeah.
spot right now, no preparation, who is your comp?
Well, we've got some folks like Corey from No Ceilings that think he's like a taller Denzel Valentine. Now he didn't really pan out very well. I've been hearing like he's the wing version of a Malcolm Brogdon, which I think could be kind of
Ooh.
nice, right? Very versatile on all aspects of the floor. If I had to really pick, man, that's really tough. Me think like maybe like a more modern Trevor Ariza type player for those of you who remember what Trevor Ariza used to look like
Oh,
in the
we
NBA.
remember. Listen, we went through a bag at Trevor Ariza right after
Yeah,
the championship with the Los Angeles Lakers. So all of my Pels slash Hornets fans, we know Trevor Ariza well. That is, man, that's a comp right there. That is a big comp. So with you, obviously Tyson is probably your go-to guy from a standpoint of who you think we should take. But obviously there's a big void at center for the
yeah,
Pels, center and point guard for the Pels when you're looking at the board and you're thinking hypotheticals, not just from who they've already brought in, because we know oftentimes these teams will draft somebody that they didn't even get a chance to bring in.
sure.
Is there a player that you're like, if this guy is on the board, it doesn't matter if you obviously you got your top tier guys who are no
Hmm.
brainers, but is there a sneaky guy that you're like, if this guy is on the board at your pick, New Orleans Pelicans, if you don't take him, you need to sell the franchise. Is there anybody in your head that you're that sold on that's kind of your back pocket guy?
I don't know if the future of the New Orleans Pelicans should ride on anybody in this draft class, to be fair. And I love this draft, but I mean, we're talking about the future of a franchise on the line. I wouldn't do that. I'll tell you one player that I think kind of makes a lot of sense would be Khalil Ware out of Indiana. I think that he makes a lot of sense because if we look at what Zion has done and how he's succeeded, floor spacing is going to be at the utmost, right? Because Herb Jones, he's growing as a 3-point shooter, but I wouldn't say that he's a knockdown guy. Trey Murphy, obviously a knockdown 3-point shooter. There's a few other shooters on this team, but if you can get a pivot man at the 5 who can kind of lean into that like floor spacing, rim protection, rebound, he's big, tall, strong. Had a little bit of character issues his freshman year at Oregon, but all the intel coming out of him out of Indiana now, Dylan, is that playing for Coach Woodson, by the way, who used to coach in the NBA,
Come
I
on.
think that helped him out a lot.
Yeah.
All the intel now is that he's just like complete 180 as a player. Like the preparation is there, the hard work, the hustle, the determination is there. This guy was challenging Derek Lively in his draft as who's going to be the better of the two big men. So if you can kind of lean into the hype of what he was supposed to be when he came in as a freshman at Oregon and look at the totality of what he was able to do under Coach Woodson at Indiana this year, I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about him. He could be there at 21. He could also be like a sneaky guy off the board early, which could allow maybe like a Deron Holmes or a Zach Edey, someone like that at the 5 spot to be available for the New Orleans Pelicans this year.
Man, oh man, you just made me so happy. I've been beating the Khalil. I always mess up his first name. Where's drum for forever? 16 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists on a 40 clip from three, 50 clip from two, free throw 60%. But that's but the intangibles and just the I told someone his floor to me is a Christian Wood and his ceiling to
Mm.
me is I don't know. Like I don't. I don't know. You said Derek Lively, which is awesome, but I didn't see. He seems to shoot it better at their current state than
Yeah.
Derek Lively did, and so I'm just like he's the
Well,
one
they
guy who
challenged each
honestly.
other, like I said, and when Lively was in, when he came out of the draft, he was obviously a lottery level talent that the Mavericks coveted quite heavily coming into that year. Khalil Ware was thought of to be like the guy who is going to be better, and now situation kind of challenges, prospects. They're people too, right, Dylan? And I feel
Right,
like
right, right.
the little bit that we've gotten to talk, I feel like you would understand like the human aspect of a player as well. And
Yeah.
so young man made a decision to go play at Oregon. The coach there didn't really have many nice things to say about him. It kind of discouraged the young man. So naturally translates out, goes to play for Coach Woodson, finds a renewed interest, a renewed energy into putting in the work for the Indiana team this year. And like I said, that intel now is just where you want it to be. So I think that it's gone understated, but Coach Woodson and his ability to coach the young men at Indiana, I think, really turned Khalil Ware around as a prospect. And there's a lot of teams that are like really high on him now. So he's gaining so much interest and gaining so much momentum. He might not be there, but if you look at a lot of the mocks at these popular outlets, he could very well be a target for the New Orleans Pelicans.
Please, please, please. I'm with you. Now you've given me a post who, I mean, I'm a huge Khalil fan, and so who is a guard? If where Khalil is gone, who is the guard that you're like, go get him? Is there a guard in your
Okay.
mind? Please don't say Bronny James.
I'm not going to say Bronny James. I personally wouldn't draft him this year, and it's not a shot. Like, has nothing
It's
to
just
do with LeBron
honest.
James. It's like if we're all being honest about what he did this year, like probably would have been better off to go play for Duquesne, which I think it's well chronicled that LeBron James had like family friend coaches that team. I think that would have been really good for him, but alas, here we are. If I had to go with a guard, though, um, I don't know how you feel about Isaiah Collier. Now, the thing with Collier is that he came into the season with a lot of hype, potential number one player in this draft. Uh, USC was a kind of a tumultuous situation for him, let's say, because Bronny obviously kind of the heart conditions. Vincent Iwuchukwu was a player who was a highly touted big man. This was his first year playing after he suffered a heart condition. Kobe Johnson didn't really live up to the expectations. Josh Morgan, the center there, really didn't play well either. Now you can argue that Isaiah Collier didn't. There's a lot of like give and take with this. Like, was the was the situation at USC kind of a bad one for Collier to really kind of go and prove himself? And then on the other side of that coin, Dylan, is that was he kind of maybe a little bit of the problem, because he could have played at a number of different places, went to USC. It's a very loud program. And obviously a good NIL deal for him. Playing with Boogie Ellis can be kind of hard as well. He's a little bit of a shot chucker himself. But I don't know. Like the shooting wasn't all that great at all. He's got the tag as like very turnover prone, which he did turn the ball over a lot, but he was actually a positive assist to turnover ratio guy, very high assist percentage as well. Very strong, about 6'3", 6'4" in shoes, very well put together young man, would probably be ready to deal with the physicality of the NBA day one. But if you're looking at the makeup of the Pelicans, can you afford Zion, who needs to work as a 3-point shooter? You just lost Fred Vincent to the Detroit Pistons. The very well known shot doctor for the team has left. So, do you really want to take on an Isaiah Collier, who's a really big, strong rim pressure guy,
Yeah.
good vision, not afraid to sling the ball around a lot? But I just think that the spots that he's most effective on the floor, that's already reserved for Mr. Zion Williams. So, but there's high upside. Like he could very well be the best gotcha prospect in this class where everyone's kind of down on him, and he comes in and plays well. So that's really the only guard that I could see being available that kind of fits that range. Maybe a Tyler Kolek, who is a pretty good 3-point shooter, nice ancillary playmaker, would be more of like a second tertiary ball handler on this team. But you're kind of slim pickings when you get to that 21 range when it comes to point guards, to be honest with you, Dylan.
Yeah, and I love your take on Collier. He's my sneaky guy too, simply because I see a lot of Tyreek Evans in him, and just a big
Pelicans legend.
guard. Yeah, Pelicans legend. Never mind. Anyway, but he's big guard, can change of pace, but he's like Tyreek Evans with like,
some
this
Evan
is gonna
Turner in
sound
there too, a
crazy.
little bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
but he plays like with Russell Westbrook type force. Does that make sense? Like when he's
Yeah.
attacking the rim, it's like Tyreek was big and just overpowered you, but it seems like when Collier gets to the rim, he wants to punish the rim. He's not going up there for just he wants to
We've
use
had
every
some
bit.
we've had some like conversations at No Ceilings where there's a little tinge of a Baron Davis or a little tinge of a Raymond Felton, some of these like
Mm,
bigger, burlier, old school guards. But
yeah,
Baron Davis was a problem rising up over the top of people. Where
that's
Collier
it.
is Collier's a good athlete. He's more of
Okay,
a power athlete. He's not like a high twitch guy. You know what I mean? So
right.
like to me, that's where like the Raymond Felton comes in there. But Raymond Felton had some zoom to him when he was young
Yeah,
too. So it's kind of weird because he's like an old school guard in a lot of ways. He doesn't have a
yeah,
lot of lift and he doesn't really shoot that great, but he's a force around the basket. So
yes.
but again, like how does that fare next to a Zion Williams? I feel like they would just be stepping on each other's toes a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I think you could get into a situation where one of them would have to develop a more effective three point
Yeah.
shot. So I agree with you. I love Collier. I think he's going to be. I don't know why, but every time I watch him play, he plays with. I love a guard that plays with force. And when he goes downhill, it is I am getting to where I want to get to, and you can't really stop me. So just grab my arm because I'm bigger than you, and I'm going to finish this shot. And I just love that, obviously. So one of the biggest names that has floated around the Pels a lot is probably the biggest prospect in the draft, and Zach Edey. When you look at his fit with the Pelicans, I've heard everything from Boban, which I kind of think is disrespectful and lazy a little bit, to
Concur.
Zubac, Ivica
Yeah.
Zubac of the Clippers. Who do you see him looking like, or do you see something different in him?
I mean, it's hard to not see anything different with him because he's so tall. I think the Boban comps are just simply because of how tall he is, right? Like I don't know if you want to do the Maple Yao Ming comparison where that could be interesting. I mean, Yao is a Hall of
Wow.
Famer, right?
Yeah, that's big. That's a big comparison.
But Zach Edey is very nimble. You know, I think that's where like the Boban conversation is kind of lazy. I do like the Ivica Zubac comparison because Zubac is like a juggernaut, right? Like once he gets going, like you can't stop him. He's very nimble around the basket, good rebounder, good post defender, good two-handed, lob threat, finishes well around the basket. Edey might could shoot because of how good of a free throw shooter he's been. He was 50% from deep this year, but it was like on 4 attempts, I think. So do with that what
I
you
love
will.
it.
Um, but in all honesty,
So you're saying he's going to be in the 3 point challenge this coming year is what I heard you say.
I think that if there's enough people buying that Donovan Clingan could grow into a 3-point shooter, I don't know how
Oh,
you can't say that Zach Edey can't grow into a 3-point shooter. That's what
I
I'll say.
like it. I
I
like
think
it.
that I think that it's just as close with Edey as it is for Klingon because I mean my man shot over 80% from the free throw line on ridiculous number of attempts. Like if you look on Bar Torvik, which is the website that a lot of us use for like snapshots of like how effective different prospects are in the college ranks at certain like categories or fields or whatever. He had like an 82 free throw rate, which is I thought it was a mistake. Like it's hilarious to go and just log in and look at that stat, right? And the fact that he had an 82 free throw rate and shooting over 80% from the free throw line, that's a lot of free, easy points,
Right.
and It's really hard because I have Zach Edey on my personal board ranked in the range for the Pelicans. So, but again, if we're talking about floor spacing being an issue with Collier, the same thing is going to exist with Zach Edey, but it's kind of more tolerated and expected from your big man as opposed to your point guard, right? So I think that it could work and it could happen, especially if we like Zion running point. That's a
Yeah.
huge. Could you imagine, like, just the sound that it's going to make when Zion and Zach Edey run a pick and roll and they're both
Oh my
barreling to the
goodness.
basket? Like, that's terrifying. I would,
It's gonna
I don't know how much money you'd have to pay me to stand in front of those two men just
what
barreling to the
charge?
basket. And I'm just like, nope, no, thank you. And I think that there could be some incredible value by having a nimble, tall human being in Zach Edey, who finishes well around the basket, who's a pretty underrated passer, who crashes the glass, and I wouldn't say is like a top-notch rim deterrent, which is kind of weird to say given how tall he is.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah.
he's effective enough to where people are just going to look at him and be like, I don't know if I have the shot open to me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So he just eats up so much space. I think it could be fun. I think it could be real fun, especially if Zion can be the one, and he's your number one pick. So like, if you
Right.
have to put the pressure of anyone developing into a 3 point shooter, like it's got to be Zion. You don't draft Zach Edey and ask him to come in and be the one to develop a shot. If he does, great, right? But Zion's going to have to kind of deal with the pressure of being a number one overall pick, right? And he might be
Right.
the one that has to grow into a more effective 3 point shooter.
I love it. I love it. Listen, you kind of, I don't know how you did it, Stephen, but you sold me on Zach Edey because I've been fighting for my life in group chats about please stop mentioning Zach Edey, but you made me a fan. I'm still Khalil Ware all day,
It's
but
easier to envision a Khalil Ware fit. It's
yes, it's
easier
just
to
smoother.
see.
40%,
Yeah.
like 40% from three. Anyway, we already talked about that. Okay. Final question for you. You are GM for a time period. I won't say a day because a day you're just basically setting up your office. So that's
Sure.
a
Yeah.
that's a
Moving
cop
in.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're moving in. You're GM for a time period. You're looking at this draft. You're looking at Brandon Ingram's expiring contract. You're looking at Najee Marshall's expired contract. You're looking at the landscape of your team. You've got Trey Murphy coming up on a contract decision. You've got older CJ McCollum, who's next year is going to be his last year. What are the moves you make to make this team a championship competitive team this coming season? All things considered.
Okay. I know that I know that I forget his name, but the new general manager for the Detroit Pistons, what's his name? Trajan Langdon. Yep.
Trajan Link, yeah.
Yep. Trajan Langdon is now moving into Detroit. He's already been very vocal that he's willing to take on big contracts for draft picks, right?
Right.
The Pelicans do have some draft picks that they can afford to part with. What I might do up front is that I might trade CJ McCollum to the Pistons, and I think this helps Trajan Langdon a little bit. One, because it gives shooting to the Pistons who desperately need that beside Cade. I think that it gives Trajan someone that he trusts from day one. It establishes a good trade relationship between both of the organizations, right? So extending an olive branch in that regard. And it gives the Pistons a mentor, right, for some of these other young guys, and it gives them much needed floor spacing, right? And if you can give them, let's say, one first and maybe a couple of seconds, something like that, to where you can bring in a couple of these other contracts from the Pistons that might be expiring, right? So you might bring in a couple of expiring contracts. I'd have to do the research to figure out and make the numbers work, but there's going to be a way that you can make the numbers work with the Detroit Pistons, right? So that might be my first move. Then I would probably look at Brandon Ingram and figure out how can I get him to a team and get some role players in. I might not even ask for a whole heck of a lot of picks. Maybe you can recruit a little bit of the picks that you would be sending off in the McCollum deal anyway, and you would try to go for like a net value there. I might look at Atlanta to see if they want to come off of a couple of their wing prospects just to kind of give you some more ammunition in that regard. Maybe some of the big men or some of the forwards that they have on that team. Maybe DeAndre Hunter out of
I was gonna
Atlanta
say
might
that.
be.
Yeah.
Maybe DeAndre looks good on that team too, right? He's got Virginia connections too. So there's a couple of players that I might look to bring in there. You might could even get your point guard in that deal, right? With a Deontay Murray. So if you do want to give up even more picks, you can bring in a Deontay Murray. You move off of CJ McCollum. And then what else would I do for this draft? Even if you do have to give up in this draft, this would be the draft to do it, right? Atlanta does already have the number one pick in this year's draft. Maybe if you give in to Brandon Ingram, you bring in a Deontay Murray, you kind of sweeten the pot a little bit with the 21st pick in this year's draft. I think that the Pelicans already have uh, plenty of young players that they can still develop in this. So I might do that. So that's kind of like in my short little window. Sometime I would say if you give me a month, like these would be the two moves that I would be working on trying to do. I would try to get off of CJ McCollum, incentivize the Pistons, extend that olive branch so we can continue to work in deals. Maybe bring in, Jaden Ivey, something like that, in off of that deal as well. And then maybe try to bring in DeAndre Hunter in a Brandon Ingram trade and kind of get some salary filler in that regard as well.
Oh, so you just set up the perfect situation. CJ is now close 2 hours and 47 minutes from home, Akron, because Detroit is 2 hours and 47 minutes from Akron. So now CJ's raising his babies next to his family, all good there.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ingram is now able to run in the East, which we want him out of the West if we're letting him go, because I don't want to see Brandon Ingram. I just don't want to do it because I have
Sure.
that feeling that he's a scary guy when he's motivated. I've seen it multiple times. And then you're bringing in DeAndre Hunter, backup forward. Him and Herb together would be terrifying. Obviously, we know the Trey Murphy connection from UVA. And so, from a center standpoint, you're going to say you're going to just what are you going to sign a guy? Are you going to get a second round pick, or what are we doing?
You may be signing a guy. You have to forgive me. What second round picks do y'all have? Do y'all have any
We don't
second?
have any.
You
We
don't
don't
have
have
a
any.
second
Do you
rounder. Yeah.
trade for a second rounder or
You
something?
might
Buy
trade up in
one.
the you might buy one, and I think that there's a couple of guys that would make some sense in the second round, depending on what range you get. If it's an early second, maybe in a Dim Bona out of UCLA could make some sense. Now he's not a
You think
floor
he's going to
spacer.
be there?
I think that he'll be a second round guy. I think that he's got the talent to return first round value, but I think
Yeah.
that he's based on what I'm hearing, reading, and seeing, and talking to people about. I think that he'll be there, and he's a high motor, high character guy. Good shot blocker, very mobile and nimble, despite
Oh,
being a little bit undersized, but he's got the
yeah.
wingspan to make up for it, and he just plays hard. He's a real try hard center. If you're looking a little bit later into the second round, I think Quentin Post out of Boston College, who I had the pleasure to interview earlier this year, he might be a sneaky guy to return some crazy value as well because he's a real 7-footer. Like when he takes off his shoes and goes to bed at night, Dylan, he's a 7-footer. When he wakes up in the morning,
Come on.
he's a real 7-footer, right?
Yeah.
Shoots the ball incredibly well, so he's a floor spacing big man. Blocks the shot pretty well too. Finishes well around the rim, and I trust this guy to make sharp passes. There was a couple of plays this year, Dylan, where he just put the ball on the deck from the perimeter, drove and attacked the rim, and just throw down some dunks, right? So he, as a second rounder, could return incredible value as well. So depending on the players and parts that you want to move in a couple of these deals, if you can get back a second rounder and you're drafting one of these two young men, could be somebody else available. Yves Missy is a guy who a lot of people have projected in the first. I think that I personally value him more as a second rounder. I don't have him in my top 30 because I worry about pretty much
Thank you.
everything offensively other than
Thank you.
jumping and dunking, right? But he might be there. But I think if you're looking at second round picks, a Dem Bona kind of at the top of the second, and then kind of mid to late second, Quentin Post could return you some crazy value as well.
Man, I'm with you on that. And obviously, Missy has been quoted as being the Pelicans guy for
Yeah.
forever. But I've seen a Dembona, and I'm like, what did he do something really bad? Something
He
happened I
played
don't
out
know
of
about?
position a lot this year because they brought in an international phenom in a Damara who is only can do five. It can only do big man five stuff. Like Adem Bono is like quick and nimble enough that in college basketball, you could probably get away with him playing some four, which I think is good for his development, like individually, but that's not his natural position and it's not his most effective. So I think that he would be kind of like a Clint Capella type center in the NBA, which we've seen how long he's been able to like earn money in the NBA for a lot of different teams. I think that you could do way worse than a Dembona at the top of the second. He could return first round value pretty easily.
Wow. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for sitting down with us at the Assist. We appreciate you. We appreciate all of your work. Again, you guys can check out Stephen Gillaspie at his handles.
There you go.
His handles in the comments, as well as you can check out all the great work that No Ceiling is doing with the draft. They're covering the draft like none other, and you're going to want to see what they're doing next. Thank you so much, brother, and we appreciate you. Thank you for stopping in.
Hey, much love, Dylan. We got to do this again, man. Don't be a stranger.
That was a great conversation I got to have with Stephen. Obviously, you guys saw that I left my part of messing up his name in there, because one of the things we're going to do here at The Assist is we're going to keep it authentic with you. I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress just like you. I want to give you a real, raw, authentic approach to sports as best I can while it's still being me. You know, I can't be fake. I can't fake the authenticity. I got to be me, all the way me. And so that was a great conversation I got to have with my guy, Stephen. He really, really, really turned me on to Deron Holmes. I'm going to be honest, I didn't really turn my eye to him because he's a 6'10 guy and it was kind of just floating over there. I wasn't really, paying too much attention to him, as well as Tyson. I wasn't paying too much attention to him either. But, after listening to him, if you're anything like me, you walked away from that conversation thinking, there might be something there. We might need to look into that. I'm excited to see what the Pelicans do on draft night. There's also been news moving throughout the Pel sphere of potentially trading the pick, packaging it with Brandon Ingram and going to Atlanta and seeing if we can maybe shake away iceberg Trey or ice cold Trey Murphy. Not Murphy, Trey Murray, sorry, my brain. Trey Young. His name is Trey Young. Trey Murphy, if you're watching this, that lets you know you're my guy. As you guys know, the Pelicans have been said to be trying to concoct a trade with the Atlanta Hawks and try and see if we can get either Trey Young or DeJounte Murray. I mixed both names up. That's what I did. DeJounte Murray. And they've also been quoted as shopping Clint Capella. Now, this sounds like too easy of a deal. If they're shopping Clint Capella and you have a void at the center spot, and you could get Trey or DeJounte Murray, I think you make that deal. It might cost you Herb Jones, and that's going to hurt my soul to give up Herb Jones. But I really believe if Trey Young is on the other side of that trade, I got a feeling I'll get over it. I might lose like 30 seconds of sleep, but man, once I see Trey Young pull up from half court one time, I think I'm going to be just fine. Once I see Trey Young working the PNR, PNP with Zion, and they run an inverted PNP with Trey Young popping to the three and the defense having to decide, do we want to double down on Zion as he's attacking the basket, or do we want to stay home on Trey and let Zion go one-on-one within the paint? And then he's got Trey Murphy in one corner, and you can put whoever else you want in the other corner, and then Clint Capella in the dunker spot for the alley-oop. It's insane when you think about it. It's insane. So I'm excited to see what the Pels do. Again, I'm of the mindset if we keep that 21st pick, I really, really, really want to see Khalil Ware in a Pelicans uniform if he's on the board. If not, hey, Deron Holmes, if you're there, congratulations. You're now a New Orleans Pelican in my book. But my secret desire is that we call Atlanta. We take them some real wings. They be going to certain establishments to get wings out there. We give them some real wings, some Louisiana wings. We give them Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram, 21st pick, and we go ahead and bring home Clint Capella, Trey Young, and whatever else they want to give us. I'm of that mindset, but I digress. Thank you so much, Stephen, for sitting down with me and talking about the Pelicans. We're now going to shift gears to chat about this new team in Baton Rouge named the Baton Rouge Zydeco. I had the privilege and honor of sitting down with Barry Soskin, who is a perennial or a serial entrepreneur. He has literally pioneered multiple different organizations within hockey from all over the sphere, and he decided that Baton Rouge was the next frontier of hockey, and where he should bring a team to play in the Federal Prospect Hockey League, the FPHL, and that team is the Baton Rouge Zydeco. They started out the season a little rocky, and then they made a coaching change midway through the season, and they actually used a player as an interim coach, which is a unique thing to do. You don't really see that much in the pro sports. I mean, I think the last time we see something kind of like that was Bill Russell when he kind of coached and played with the Celtics. I think that was what that was. Maybe I'm wrong. Y'all can put it in the chat if I'm wrong on that. But you don't really see that. But then they settled in on Everett Thompson, who would steady the ship, and they would go on winning ways to end the season. And I'm going to have Everett on the show soon. We're going to talk to him and hear what was his thoughts on how the season ended. But it's going to be an amazing time, and I really, really think you're going to be edified by this conversation I have with Mr. Barry Soskin. Barry Soskin. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Dylan. I don't think I deserve any of those accolades like that.
Well, I appreciate your humility, and I appreciate how humble you are. Now, I'm a student of people, and I love to study people, and I've gotten to do a little diving into your life and everything that you've done, and I just want you to know your humility is welcomed, but there's not too many guys that can stop a private jet just until they show up. So, I mean, there's only a few Barry Soskins in the world. So I don't know if we all have
the story. You twist it. It's great when they twist the stories to make me seem even better. But I like that one. I like that part. I like that version better.
Hey, I mean, if you want to tell it, you could tell it. But from what I know of the story, it goes as such. Individual was like, when are we going to take off? When are we going to take off? When are we going to take off? And the pilot leads and says, when Mr. Barry gets here. I hear that's how the story goes. Is that correct?
That part of the story is correct, yes.
Okay, see?
That part of the story is exactly correct.
Now let me try.
The parts leading up to that, but that's certainly the punchline was right.
Right. Now listen. Now let me try and pull that same thing with American Airlines. They're going to wait for me from the sky.
You and me both. Yeah.
There's levels to this. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us here at the Node. Once again, we're so grateful for your time. You have an illustrious career in ownership and in playing. And we're going to talk about the Zydeco because I know that's what the majority of people are tuning in for. But I want to highlight everything you've done for hockey in totality. Walk us through where the genesis, for lack of better verbiage, is of your ownership or your desire for ownership at the hockey rinks.
Hockey's a very small world. There were a bunch of us old timers that were playing hockey, and we thought that we were all businessmen. We all felt that we should get involved in some way, shape, or form. And we looked at some of the things to get involved with. And in 1989, I think it was the South Bend, Indiana single A baseball team sold for $4.5 million. So the 4, 5, 6 of us at the next time we're sitting at the bar after a game, just trying to pour a couple of drinks in us to kind of settle us down after playing, because we all had to get up early the next morning. So we decided that, okay, if a single A baseball team is that much money, we're out. And I came across an ad for hockey that had a salary cap. And this was where the Kingfish were back in the 90s. This, to me, was 1989. So before any of the teams came in along the I-10 corridor. And they wound up, we wound up getting together with the East Coast Hockey League and putting a team in. That was a little bit of probably a chapter in a book all by itself, because we were turned down twice. They didn't like the markets. Well, I think originally the league didn't like the partner that they set me up with, and then they didn't like the market that I was going to. And when I changed the market to Toledo, things changed, and things changed for me there. And not only did I have tremendous success on and off the ice, doing everything a minor league is supposed to do, play in front of a lot of fans, get involved in the community, uh, move players, coaches, broadcasters up to the next level. Nobody won more games while I had a team in the coast, and I'm proud of that. Nobody moved more people up to the next level than we did. And I say I'll take all the credit, but it wasn't me at all. It was the people who I hired, who I surrounded myself with. They deserve all the credit, and they've gotten it. I started Toledo back in '90, and these things have, some of these guys are still involved in hockey today. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, the Toledo Storm team was a expansion team, and you basically iterated its launching in the ECHL, correct?
I was team number 8 in a league that one time had over 30. I would say that I got in on the ground floor there. There's people that say I bought myself a job, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I learned to grow with the business. A lot of things have changed since '90 in marketing and certainly in social media and how we get our word out and how we get our name across. The customer service is still number one. To me, this is still about entertainment. We all love hockey. That's what it's about. But this is entertainment. You have to be thoroughly enjoyed. Otherwise, you're not coming to give me your money and watch these boys live.
Right, and that's just hearing that model. It's kind of you would think it would be commonplace for any level beneath the NHL. It should be commonplace for the NHL, but we're seeing certain things that we won't talk about right now. But it should be commonplace. But for you to have that ideology and be so successful at it, you must be doing something different, because we can't say that every owner sets out with that as the goal. We want to put butts in the seats, and we want a product that everybody loves to be a part of, right? That's the goal. But you're doing it so well, and you've done it so well, from the Toledo Storm to the Waterloo Blackhawks, to where you were president of the Waterloo Blackhawks, to Traverse City Enforcers. Traverse City. I want to talk about that a little more too, because I want to hear about that one. But everywhere you've gone, you have a pattern of breaking molds and doing things that most people don't see could be done in those markets. What drives you to continue to go back and try and break another mold? Is it just the love of hockey, or is there something on the inside of Barry that's just like, I want to do everything they said couldn't be done? What is the thing?
I don't know if there is a thing. What I try to do is I try to bring my message. My message hasn't changed in any of the markets. Bigger market, smaller market. Sometimes it's taken differently. I do believe it has a lot to do with your staff. I think I have great people who work for me, and they do a tremendous job of not only my ideas, but coming up with their own ideas. This, like I said earlier, this is about surrounding yourself with the right people. It is harder and harder to find those people. I do get that, but that's like all over America. I think that finding help is harder and harder nowadays. The entitled generation certainly is making it more difficult, I feel, to get my message across. But I've been lucky. I've gotten some really good people that are doing a great job. And I will tell you, I have a lot of fun in opening up these new markets as we're trying new games. I'll bring this out here. I have team that I was in for 10 years, and then they decided to go in a different direction, Danville, Illinois, and they went with the board decided after my lease was over, after being there for 11 years, playing for 10, they went with in another direction. That direction didn't work out too well for them. So I announced that I'm coming back. We'll be there this next season. That will be my seventh team, I believe. That my group. It's not mine. They're not all mine. They're part of our group that we're running. I do have the last say in all of them, but there still are a few of us, not just me. And that's pretty much what we've been doing.
But you also, correct me if I'm wrong, is you're I just heard breaking news, by the way. People, you get breaking news here at the Know. We just heard that there's another team coming into the fray that's going to be in Danville. But you also are launching the Blue Ridge Bobcats, correct? Is that coming down?
That's already happened. That's in
Okay.
Virginia. That's not even the one you caught up on. I was starting to tell you. With the Danville games, I've got a market that's, I don't want to say it's right on top of them, but they're a brand new market. Yeah. They had hockey again long time ago, and I'm trying to bring professional hockey back there too. And it's Topeka. I'm going to take 4 of my games that will be in Danville. 4 of Danville's home games will be played in Topeka this upcoming season. The dates are the end of January, and I think the first Saturday in February for our 4 games. Yeah, I'm excited about that. So yeah, I think that the message is clear. And what we try to do, listen, this is, not only am I excited about another market and about another team, but what I'm really excited about is the places that I'm going, the messages that I'm sharing is we're trying to take this sport and bring it to people that haven't necessarily been able to get in front of this sport. It's an expensive sport. We've had a learn to skate program that we've had now for a couple of years in Winston. Baton Rouge is adopting it as well. I hope that all the markets I have adopt it. It run by the team with help from the local police department, as well as obviously the city and the building itself. And we're teaching, underprivileged kids how to skate, and we're paying for it. It's all on our dime. We're keeping them off the streets, which I think is important. And we're taking a certain a number of kids a year. We pick 50. If it's, 60, we're okay with that. Every year for 5 years, we understand that they grow and they'll need more equipment. And our group is set forth on making sure that those kids have an opportunity to play and learn our sport, learn the sport that I'm passionate about. And, I'm involved in ownership in baseball too. I'm a sports nut. I'd rather watch women's badminton or, anything than a TV show. I have a business off the track. I have a business, and there's a TV show called Chicago Fire. And they came in and filmed part of it in my store. And there was like 15 employees walking around the store, how they're going to film this and everything. And so I, pulled one of them off to the side, and, she was asking me about it. And, I was talking to this nice, 20-something girl. And she says, "Do you watch the show?" And I said, "What time does it come on ESPN?" And she goes, "No, it's not on ESPN."
I love it.
I wouldn't have any idea on any TV shows because I'm watching sports or I'm streaming sports or I'm talking about it. So there's nothing else about it than that. Okay.
Oh my
All right, I got off.
No, this is about, like I said, this is not an interview for me, sir. This is a conversation to understand the wirings of, you're a serial entrepreneur, basically.
You mean so there is wiring up there somewhere?
It has to be. There's something up there. I mean, my goodness, everywhere you go, I heard this old saying from an old mentor of mine. Most very most very successful people have a small madman on the inside of them that is lightly crazy. They just know how to wire him correctly. And I mean, just listening to you talk and how you talk about yourself, I'm like, man, the, give me whatever madman's on the inside of this guy, because it is just, I mean, everywhere you go, you succeed, and you're progressing.
No. I don't think that at all. In fact, I honestly have to tell you, I think one learns more in defeats or losses than, the accolades are great, the successes are wonderful. I don't wear. I mean, you can almost see through the TV thing here. Maybe I don't wear any of the rings that I have, and I probably have 10 or 12 championship rings along the years. I figured it out. If you buy enough teams, you got to win a championship. That's the key right there. So, I try to, what I'm trying to do is bring, a quality of life that people can enjoy, both on the ice as a participant, as well as being a fan. I love going, I'm a fan of the Chicago Blackhawks. I have been, virtually my whole life as I've been a Chicago resident. So I try to see as many games as I can, both live and on TV. I enjoy that. And I want to bring that sport and I love listening to the podcasts of former players. I'm a fan, and that's probably the biggest asset that all these markets have. Is I'm a fan of the game that I'm trying to bring to them, and I kind of know what they want because I want it too. You know what I mean? We need to see a fight. You know what I mean? We want to see hard hits. We want to see creativity and speed, and we want to see a win. You know what I mean? We don't want to walk away from a home game with a losing record. So those are the things that I try to bring, and we're all on the same page when we talk like that.
And you are, I mean, that is a perfect model, because everything you're saying embodies the culture of Louisiana in itself. It's hardworking, gritty, grimy, and gonna fight for every victory. That's just who we are. So you kind of gave me a great transition point with that philosophy on hockey. It's, when you and your team thought about bringing hockey back to Baton Rouge, what was the point in your mind? What drew you guys to Baton Rouge? What was the factor that made you say this is the next frontier for the South as far as hockey goes?
Well, first of all, I mentioned earlier about the I-10 corridor and all the teams being added in the late 90s to the East Coast Hockey League. Well, I was on the expansion committee during that time, so I learned an awful lot about all these markets. And, I don't know if it's a bad marketer or a bad building or a bad choice. When there's teams in the league right now that I'm trying to help in our league that are not spending money wisely. And it's putting them in a position where I don't see them being around for very long. And it continues to happen. Now, if you're undercapitalized, you need money to make money. If you're undercapitalized, it doesn't work. But if you're capitalized properly and you're overspending, pretty soon you see this as not the investment or not the fun that you wanted it to have. And you look elsewhere. Again, I learn more from my losses than my successes. So if somebody else has a loss and I'm right there having to deal with it, not only do I have all the teams that I'm involved with, but my phone is on, and I'll certainly answer from any of my partners who feel that they're in trouble or feel that they want to take a direction that we're taking. And we're doing some, wild things in Winston. We don't have any seats. I don't need to hire anybody to sell group tickets. Not bad, huh? And listen, it's not me. That is not me. That's the staff. That's the product. Look at the coach and look at every one of those players. I give all the accolades that I can possibly give to the administrative side, and I love that. I want them to get the credit that they deserve. Players seem to get a lot of credit. The fans are always cheering them on. Nobody's cheering on the ticket salesman. Nobody's, you know what I mean? The broadcaster's up there doing a great job. I don't hear anybody cheering them on. So I try to give those guys the accolades that I feel they need. But if you don't have a good product, boy, it makes that job damn near impossible. And that's why I think that Winston's doing such a great job, because they've got it like all. You know what I mean? The package is there, except for the ring the last couple of years. But the package is there. And, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but out of 28 home games, I believe they sold out 20 of them. And then the playoff games, which are extremely hard to sell out, I believe we sold out of every single playoff game. So, that's what markets, that's what other teams are talking to me about, and trying to see how they can duplicate some of that success. So I want to help the other teams in the league that aren't doing so well, so that we can all do better. I think that, if I'm looking at this strictly as an asset, my asset goes up when teams are strong. Other teams are strong, both on and off the ice.
Right. And that's you said something about product, and I want to say and by the way, when he talks about what's going on in Winston, for everybody that doesn't know, he's talking about the Carolina Thunderbirds. For anybody that's listening and they're like, where's Winston? Don't worry. It's a really good team in Carolina that he also spearheaded. But when you talk about the product, one of the things I know, and this question is a personal question, and I'm going to be honest and say this was not in my notes. I just heard you speak, and I said, I'm going to ask him this question. I don't know who the design team is that designed our uniforms, our jerseys, and everything, but they deserve a raise. Bravo, and bravo to the social media team, because I remember the original logo you guys came out with. You had the Mississippi River Bridge on it, but then I guess your social media team was aware of what was going on, and so you took the bridge off and you made it more clean and more transient, not transient, that's the wrong word, but easier to translate into different things. And so with all that to be said, I'm going to ask you a question. Is there ever going to be a day where I can purchase a jersey of the Zydeco and it be outside of auction, or is that the model that you've seen succeed and you kind of want to stick to that?
No, yes, maybe. Yes, there will be. As we're getting our act together and our buying together properly, we're sorting through those things. I want you to be able to get a jersey. I do like the fact that I don't like everything to only be an auction. I like there to be a raffle. I like there to be a lot of, listen, a couple $100 sometimes doesn't grow on trees. I get that. And listen, I'm sitting there trying to be sensitive about that. I'm sensitive to the people who are paying the bills as well. And so I want to make sure that I can, give them a little something. And if there's a raffle or some way where I can have them be involved in getting a jersey a little bit cheaper, I'm all for that. But yeah, there will be jerseys available. I actually think that although our merchandise did a great job, there are, I mentioned before where I think that Winston's got a lot of the package together. Don't think for a second that we're resting. I mean, there's a lot of things that are on the horizon, and I'm not sitting still in Carolina. And, the Baton Rouge team, they've only had one season. And really, the gentleman who's helped me run that all year, Don, he virtually started the week. The week that the season started was his first week. I think you'd have to ask him, but I think he actually flew in for the home game and then went back home and came back the next week. So, there wasn't any time for him to really focus on some of the things that we wanted to do that we talk about. And, there needs to be more time to plan some of that stuff out. So every team, no matter how long I've been there, we want to do better every year. And I think that might be the problem of teams in the past. Mm. There was a movie made a while ago with Kevin Costner called Field of Dreams. It was a baseball movie, and it was basically build it and they'll come. Right. That was the voice from his father coming from the cornfields. Yeah. Well, it's not true. Mm. You know what I mean? You bring a hockey team and you just say, hey, man, it's here. You're going to come for a year. And then you're not going to come anymore unless you do something to market your club. So as I was preluding before, is this a market? Is this a building? Is this the owner said, hey, I want to put an NHL team here, and it shouldn't have had the NHL team? Baton Rouge had the money, had the support, had the people. They didn't have the marketing. I think they forgot what they were doing. And every year, look it up yourself. Every year attendance went down. That's not a recipe for success. Right. And there are other things that kept the team out for a while. I'm experiencing some of those issues now. And it has nothing to do with the fans or the community. It's just maybe the cards that I was dealt. There's no additional ice sheet. So when you want to practice, I've got to go to where there's ice. If there's ice at 275 River, I'm there. They have a very good staff themselves. Believe it or not, their staff is not paid to have the building empty. So their staff is paid to put stuff in the building. Right. Makes sense to me. Right. I pay taxes. That's certainly what I would want. Okay. Right. Well, but that maybe put me out in somewhere else for practice. So I would have to say that this year I drove to Lafayette for practice more than I had practice in my own building. Wow. So that's some of the issues that a team has to deal with when they're playing in Baton Rouge. And I'm working on trying to rectify those problems. But if you don't have the foresight to want to work on those problems and have a solution, and the solution can't be give me money. If the solution is here's my hand, put money in it, it doesn't work. Those days either never existed or are long, long gone. So, what I'm trying to do is come up with a way so that it's financially feasible to get a youth program here. Again, this is why I'm trying to help build a learn to skate program, get kids, another way to get kids off the street. It's proven sports does it. You at least give kids something to do. You don't give them anything to do. You don't give me anything to do. I'm 66. I'm getting in trouble. Okay? And I'm an old man who can't do much. So if you're a lot younger than me and you got a lot of built up energy, you're getting in trouble. Sports help me. It's helped my kids. It's helped, my people around me. I want to see it do the same to every market that I'm in, and not just Baton Rouge. I want to see it happen in Port Huron and, in Biloxi. Let's continue. Winston-Salem. I'm in Whitville, Virginia, with the Blue Ridge Bobcats that you talked about. I want it to happen everywhere.
Yeah, and that's I know about all the other markets you've spoken of, but if we can, and hopefully the correct ears hear what you just said. Your goal is not just to bring hockey to Baton Rouge. Your goal is to encourage the community to grow. And anything that is encouraging community to grow and be safer, it should be supported by the mass. Because I can tell you, as a young fan, I remember, and interview isn't about me, it's clearly about you, but I just want to kind of speak into the impact you're having. I remember being in the second or third grade, and I'll never forget this. This was a long time ago for me. And I remember we gotten tickets to go to a Baton Rouge Kingfish game, and it was a day game, so we went during school. And I remember going into that arena, and I'd never seen hockey before outside of the Mighty Ducks. And I can remember that day still to this day. And now that I'm older, I'll be honest with you and say I had not had the opportunity to follow hockey or to follow sports like I could have if the Kingfish would have stuck around, because I fell in love with hockey that day. But I just didn't have an avenue to feed into that love. It was kind of like, oh, that was a shot in the pan and now it's gone. And so I mean, I know my voice means nothing, but I value and I honor what you're doing, especially
No,
in the
and
city.
listen, I get where you're coming from. And back then, honestly, when you say, okay, I lost my team and I can't go too close to another one, it 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 didn't translate good on TV back then. And you couldn't follow the puck. It was very hard for you to watch the game, especially to a fan that was trying to learn it. Now, actually, I won't even say now, since plasma TVs came out, so it's been a little bit. It's been a lot better game to watch, and certainly the broadcasts that I've seen, whether they've been on my local sportscasts or the network stuff on ESPN that I've watched. The game is, to me, it's like watching a football game. They've got sideline reporters and multiple cameras and a lot of different. Yesterday I'm watching the NHL and Charles Barkley's on there talking hockey. So, and I think he's a comic. I love that.
Right.
So, he was in fact talking about a joke with Messier on the broadcast about how during a basketball game he went up to shake his hand in New York and got fined $5,000. I thought that was a cool story. But yeah, again, I love to hear those type of stories. So I eat that stuff up, and with everything that I go and see on with my Chicago Blackhawks, I try to do that with our teams, all of them. I'm not going to be on network TV, and my budgets aren't quite, $150 million, but I still want to see us with a lot of content on our website. Half of the teams have podcasts. One of the teams had an app, didn't work out, but we're always willing to try something and work on different things. I love it when I just punch on different things on my website. You click on different things, and I mean, I get off on watching the different content that we have. Like I said, I'm a fan. I eat that stuff up myself.
And man, you're doing a great job, and that's you lead like a fan, and that's it, refreshing. So to just transition the conversation a little bit to talk a little bit about what you are doing with the Zydeco. They ended the year extremely strong, 3-game winning streak, and but how they got there is the most astonishing part. The beginning of the team, they started out with the coach that didn't make it to camp before he was let go, and then there was a co-coach situation, and then that ended with MJ Graham being the interim head coach, and we finally landed on Everett Thompson, who's a phenomenal hire. Oh my goodness, I was man, I'm a fan, but to talk about all of that from a front office, or you're kind of even above front office standpoint, what is going into making all of those decisions while at the same time trying to keep together such a brand new brand? What is the thought process behind that?
So you're telling me that I had to have a thought process in the first place? No. First of all, you have to understand, as the managing member, need to understand what we are. Again, I keep referring to my Blackhawks. We're not the Chicago Blackhawks. They're not on my schedule. Zydeco's got to play, Mississippi Seawolves. They've got to play the New Monroe team in Louisiana. They've got to play, Columbus and Athens and Virginia. You know what I mean? Winston-Salem. They don't have to play those NHL teams. So what you're trying to do is gear your team up for what success that they can have on running, on running what they're trying to do. I don't bite off more than you can chew, and do an excellent job with what you do. Remember the Washington Redskins? They ran Riggins right, they ran Riggins left, and everybody knew what they were doing, but they did it better than everybody, and nobody could stop them. So don't worry about what others are doing. Try to do what you can do. When you have a team and you're there to feed the other leagues, you're going to lose players. It happens. That's what you're about. Do the fans want to see your best player leave? No, they don't. But they have to understand what you're there for and what you're trying to accomplish for the player and for your market to be able to grow. So as you're trying to move players up, or you're trying to move anybody up, there's going to be challenges for you. Well, that comes with coaches too. You have coaches that feel that they have a better opportunity elsewhere, and they'll make that decision to move. I sign an agreement with everybody, but I'm not going to hold anybody up. They don't want to work for me. They don't have to work for me. It's partially free country. So I'm told, until I got to pay the taxes and all those other things. I question the freedom that I'm allowed, and I'm married for a long time, so that's less freedom too. But you're going to run into challenges, and coaching is one of them. Sometimes you go through a coach that is there and doesn't do a good job. That hurts more. You have a coach that you hired and somebody else wants them. That makes me feel good. I did a good job of hiring that guy. If somebody perceivably wants to give him more money, make his quality of life better, I'm happy for him. And I was the one that was able to see that first, because I hired him first. Again, I did I take the credit again. My staff, our staff, made the right decision when we came down to and we decided to pick somebody. But when somebody can offer more money, that's one thing that I won't do. I'm not gonna cheat. I'm not going to what I call change the model that I think works. And I don't have to have a model. You're in Detroit, you're in Port Huron. One team is running an operation for literally a third more. No wonder they're in financial straits. Okay. They don't need to be there, and they're taking in more money than Port Huron is, yet they're nowhere near the same, not even close to the same financial security or success that others around them are doing. So you need to have the right model, and I'm not going to break the model. I'd love to have Wayne Gretzky in his prime play for me, but he's not going to play for what we can afford to pay him. So I need to be able to buy a ticket and watch him, when he was playing against my Hawks. That's what I was able to do. You just need to realize where you are. Coaches, broadcasters. I lost a broadcaster because he got a job and making twice as much money. How do you not allow that to happen? That's what I'm here for. That's what I want to happen. If I'm where it starts, it's not where it ends. Unless you want it to end here. If this is where it starts for the people, I want you to go and enjoy as much as you can.
And hearing that, that's just, I mean, that sounds like open-handed ownership, which is what you are operating with, which is my job is to put you in position to be the best you and go forth. And that's very kind of you. But to flip that on its head, no,
I disagree. I don't think it's kind of me. I look, if you're if I don't put you in a position to succeed, I don't succeed. If I have my broadcaster be the coach and I have the coach be a broadcaster, how successful am I? I want the coach to be a coach, and it's my job to have him excel as a coach so that he can move up and be a coach at the next level. I want my broadcaster to do whatever it takes for him. And some broadcasters in my world, some broadcasters sell. It seems like nowadays they're more into the graphics and social media and stuff like that. Great. You know what I mean? You broadcast 3 hours, 6 hours a week. What are you doing the rest of the time? So, there's a lot of ways that you're going to help a team. And I don't have an NHL budget where I've got 15 people doing 15 jobs. We have 5 people doing the 15 jobs. You know what I mean? And that's the model that makes this work. That's how Don Kernan started this, 15 years ago. And when you don't run it like that, you change what everybody's trying to do, and it doesn't work.
Not to play devil's advocate, but to ask this question. With that being your thought process, and I'll have one more question after this, by the way. Thank you for your patience with me. With that being your thought process, how do you go about making sure the product does not suffer with said process of individuals being able to develop and elevate and transition out with such freedom, if that makes sense? Obviously, you can't stop them because, as you said, it's a free country, or so we say. But what does that look like for you? Is that a form system of individuals you have behind them that can easily step into their space? Or is it kind of like, how do you process through that, not letting the brand suffer by losing such a significant piece to it, for lack of better verbiage?
I think it goes, it's not one easy answer.
Yeah.
We've been talking for a while. It'd probably take as long to answer that one question. But what you're trying to do, I believe, you're trying to get into a player's head, and not myself, but the coach, the coaching staff, trying to get into a player's head and find out what they're looking for. Sometimes it's best for a player to develop and get that opportunity in training camp next season. Sometimes it's better for them to go and see what it takes now. A lot of the times, the kids are up. The players are up for a couple of weeks, and then they get sent back down. So a lot of it is, the relationships that you have. I always believe next man up. Next man up. If I'm playing on that third line and I'm practicing and I'm watching you're on the second line, I gotta feel that I'm not far off from you, and if I feel I'm far off from you, then I'm probably looking to be the next standby or healthy scratch or whatever. It's a different it's a different mentality. You want to. You always want to have a good team, but you got to understand what you're there for. And if you want to succeed, you need to care about your players, and your players want the best opportunity that they can get. And some of them feel it's to go up right this second. Some of them, we had a player in Winston who was called up. and I don't want to go into names or anything. It's immaterial. When they were playing for the home team in Carolina, they're a very good team. Building sold out. He's getting 25, 30 minutes of ice time, on the power play or on the first line penalty kill. He gets called up. Is he making more money? Yes. Is his quality of life the same? No. No. He can't go anywhere. He can't go anywhere and get noticed. You know what I'm saying? Unless he does something and get arrested. So it's a different quality of life for some guys. And I know that we had a player in Winston that came back. He wasn't cut. He came back because he wasn't playing. He called our coach to say, "Hey man, is there anything you can do?" You can't call a coach and say, "Hey man, this guy deserves to be on the power play." Who the hell are you? It's my team, right?
Right.
So there's there's always going to be challenges when you're in the minor leagues. I remember in Danville, just before COVID in January, I was in first place. I didn't make the playoffs. We had call-ups, we had injuries, and there weren't enough guys to come up through the ranks. And then by the time we were allowed to add college kids, and they added a few college kids, they didn't have enough to to come back and gain a playoff spot. That's pretty disheartening when you're in first place in the middle of the season and no playoff run for you. So,
my goodness, man,
that's part of the minor league gig,
Right, and there's been movies written about the minor leagues, just seeing you navigate that terrain and the multitude of different avenues you've been in, the multiple different minor leagues you've been in, it's insane. And so, well, I want to thank you so much for your time. But before I let you go, Mr. Barry, we have a fun game I like to play. It's called The Greatest of All Time.
The greatest what?
The greatest of all time. And I'm just gonna ask 4 questions. And then I'm gonna ask one, and then I want your answer. But if I pause, I want to know why it is that. And then we're gonna keep going. Are you ready?
Go for it. We'll see.
Greatest hockey city of all time.
Chicago.
I knew.
Come on. But I mean that's unfair. My hometown. Plus, I grew up in the Chicago Stadium. No building was ever that loud, ever. And I was in the Toledo Sports Arena. The Chicago Stadium, their last year was Remember the Roar. And it's a shame now because 30 years later, at Roar has never been duplicated. They've had 3 championships in a new building, and that Roar has never been duplicated. So, and the world got a chance to see it when during an All-Star game, when they had the All-Star game here, and they were, cheering like crazy and going nuts. So I have to say Chicago. Okay. Next.
I won't fester you there. Greatest player of all time. We know the people are going to say Wayne Gretzky, but you being a student, I want to know what's your answer.
Wow. I've got my favorites. I've got guys that I think were heart and souls of the team. I was asked once, who my favorite Blackhawk was, and my answer was, you mean besides Keith Magnuson? And Keith Magnuson wasn't a great player as much as he was the heart and soul of a team. And he wouldn't have made anybody's lineup half the time, but he just had the heart that you wanted in that locker room, and he stood up for his teammates, and he would be on my team somewhere. As far as the best player, I've seen a lot of great ones. You know, somebody who I felt had all the tools, and this is what I'm going to go after, wasn't just an offensive stud like Brett Hull, wasn't just somebody who went and banged people, you know, had more speed than Wayne Gretzky. I don't think anybody saw the ice as good as Gretzky did. That's why he is remarkable. I don't remember, Gordie Howe. I don't remember some of those guys. I actually saw Gordie Howe play in the WHA with his kids, but
Wow.
I don't remember him in his prime. For me, I would say a guy like, Marian Hossa, a Chris Chelios, those guys they took that position and they played that position with passion, probably better than anybody else or as good as anybody else during their time. I mean, Paul Coffey was phenomenal as an offensive defenseman, but nobody played that position like Chelly. And he played more games as a Red Wing than a Blackhawk. So
Right.
I'm not just going after my Hawks here.
I was thinking that in my head.
Also played for, I think, every team. I think he played for Ottawa probably the longest. But again, these guys, in my world, I like the plus minus stat. That's how important you are. If you were on the ice, did your team score? That's or did you get scored on? That's it. You were on the ice when it happened. Somehow it was your fault. And to me, I call that the most important stat. Some disagree. And when you have guys that are plus 50, plus 60, plus 70, those are the guys I want to talk about. I've known guys that have 100 points and they're a plus 20. Like, what? I mean, that to me, you're wasting that position. I can do that. Get me a chair and I can do that. I'll be at the blue line waiting for you to pass me the puck. But I'm going to have to say if I got and for a goaltender, tell me somebody better than the Eagle when he was hot. He was better than Eddie, and he left the Hawks. So
yeah,
I should be pissed at him. But
yeah,
the Eagle was something else.
different type.
I would say that those three guys would probably, be the top in the positions for me.
That level of athleticism in the net was just insane. I mean, anyway.
Wait a minute. Think about that. Don't you want to get away from that puck?
Yes.
You want it to hit you? No.
It was insane. That's a different conversation. We could harp. That
Right.
was insane.
Right.
Okay, greatest hockey movie of all time.
Slapshot.
I knew it. That if you would have said any other one, I would have been like,
I think that might be the only. How's this? I might even go with Slapshot 2 before I go with any other movie. And that was pretty bad.
No Mighty Ducks?
You know what? I will have to go along with that. When the Mighty Ducks came along, when my kids were around. So I did watch them a lot. I will have to say that's certainly the Mighty Ducks were better than Slapshot 2.
But the rawness of Slapshot 1, it encapsulated the real hockey player experience from what I've heard. And so it's kind of, if you would have said any other one, I would have been like, what?
If you talk to some of those guys that played for the Kingfish back then, they'll tell you some of their stories weren't too far off from the Slapshots.
Really?
Yeah. Talk to some of the guys. It's really, I don't want to say some of the, some of the ownership, craziness, but I mean, as far as fans, as far as, all the other craziness that went on. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Wow. Okay. Last one. And this is one that is for you. Favorite, greatest hockey memory of all time. It can be with the kiddos. It can be a game you went to. It could be something you experienced with your wife, whatever. Your greatest hockey memory of all time.
probably got to get sentimental. I've had, I've had the pleasure of seeing the Blackhawks win. I've had the pleasure of being part of teams where I've had a responsibility or ownership or whatever in them winning. I think I got to go to when, I don't know if it was one game. I think it was a bunch of them where I'm just walking around with my son at a hockey game where he's got, the Blackhawk jersey with his name on the back of it, and the number was 1/2. Okay. I made the little kid a jersey. So his number, he wasn't a full 1. I made him a jersey half. At the national anthem, everybody's on their feet screaming and cheering. I put my kid on my shoulder so he can see every game. I take him to about half of the games. I have season tickets. I've had season tickets for years. So I take my wife to about half of the games and my little son to the other half of the games. He's on my shoulder. It's the playoffs. After the playoffs, the Toledo, the East Coast Hockey League has their meetings. I think it was in Montreal at the where the NHL had their draft, and they're having a lot of parties. And there's a video of the recap of the Stanley Cup, and it's a 15-minute NHL sports recap, and it starts by them singing the national anthem and how crazy it is at the stadium, as we talked about earlier. Well, the camera is behind my head, 4 or 5 rows up. So when you got the camera pointing at the singer, you're looking at a jersey that says Soskin 1/2.
Wow.
That was, so here I am walking around trying to grab we were affiliated with the Red Wings. So I'm walking around trying to get all the Red Wings guys every 15 minutes to look and show them where my kid is on my shoulder and what seats I have at the, so that's probably, showing everybody that, being at those games with my kid. Listen, I don't know how old your children are, or if you have children, but it's when you're at a sporting event with them, it's different. Those are memories that you will not forget ever. My son's 35, 36. This happened when he was probably 4 or 5. And you're asking me some of my favorite memories. That's popping into my head first. Family. Okay. And honestly, when you talk about keeping kids off the street, isn't that what I'm trying to do? Yeah. I'm trying to make sure that we have a successful young America, not the direction that we've been heading recently.
Yeah. Yeah. My goodness. Wow. I got chills from that memory, if I'm being honest, because I just took my daughter to go see a Blue Jackets game this past season. And I had gotten a jersey gifted to me, and she wanted one. She said, "Daddy, can I have a jersey?" And I was like, her mom was like, "Don't you waste no money on the jersey. She's not going to wear it." And I'm like, "All right, I'm not going to waste it." And I snuck away for a bit, and I said, "Can I get that jersey right there?" And I came back and brought her jersey. Her eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. And I have this video on my social media after the game we won. On her and my, they're playing jump around, and she's on my shoulders, jumping up and down. Her hair is waving. She's just losing her mind. And it's like, it's just, I honestly, just hearing you tell that story instantly took me back to my story. And so, Mr. Barry, thank you so much for giving me.
Tell you what, 10 years from now, you're going to tell that. Sorry, but 10 years from now, you're going to tell that story, and you're going to choke up telling that story 10 years from now.
I already am. Listening to yours made me almost cry. I'm like, shoot, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So, well, I look forward to bringing her to see the Zydeco play. And thank you so much for giving me a little piece of your time and a little piece of your day. It is a privilege of mine to be able to sit with you. And thank you so much once again for bringing hockey back to our city. It needs it. And I don't know any of the conversations you're having from a political standpoint behind the scenes to keep hockey in our state. But I know this: if people don't like feelings, they like stats. And this last year, the Zydeco crossed at 100 and was one of only two teams to cross the 110,000 fan threshold. And also, you started out with a goal that you only wanted to, not only you wanted to get about 3,000 fans in the stands per home game. You eclipsed that by 600 plus. And so, if people are into that type of thing known as success, and they would rally behind what Mr. Berry and his amazing team is building here with the Baton Rouge Zydeco. So thank you again. I appreciate you for your time, and I can't wait to see the Zydeco go one more time.
All right, Dylan, thank you. Enjoyed being with you.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, listen, if you listen to that conversation, you have to be fired up about hockey in Louisiana. And don't worry, if you don't know much about hockey, in future episodes of The Assist, I'm going to have small little segments where I break down certain little lingo, hockey lingo, just to get you more aware. And also, the best way to learn about it is just to go to the rink. Go to catch a Baton Rouge Zydeco game. I guarantee you it is more than a hockey game. As you heard from Mr. Soskin, he does his best to make sure that you don't just go to the game and say, oh, that was hockey. No, he wants it to be a full experience, from music to timeout segments and all the different things. He wants it to be a moment that you remember for the rest of your life with your family. So if you're located in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, wherever you're at, take that trip to Baton Rouge and go and check out a game. If you need some tickets, DM me. I'm going to do my best to hook you up, because I really, really, really believe hockey can win in Baton Rouge. It can win, and I guarantee you will fall in love with it if you lean into it. I know it's not basketball, and I know it's not football, but what if I told you it was both in one? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, thank you so much for sitting down with me, Mr. Soskin. That concludes our first episode of The Assist. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself as much as I enjoyed making this. I cannot wait to drop another video. We're going back to back. I probably shouldn't use his music right now, because that dude, he's somewhere, licking his wounds. But anyway, we're coming back with another episode Wednesday night. I got none other than my guy, Jake Madison from Locked On Pels, who's going to be here with us. And I also am going to give you my final thoughts on the draft, and I might even sneak in a little bit of hockey talk. Maybe I can get a special guest to come and talk hockey with me. You won't know until you show up. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Assist. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you turn on that notification bell. We're only going to go up from here. It's only up from here. It's consequences. And the consequences is we keep getting better and better and better. This is The Assist. I'll see you next time.